On the morning of February 28th, 2026, explosions ripped through the skies over Tehran. Within hours, one of the most powerful men in the Middle East was dead. The supreme leader of Iran, gone. And the world woke up to the reality that a war many had feared for decades had finally begun. This is what happened, why it happened, and what it means for the rest of the world. To understand this war, you have to understand the decades of tension that built up to it. Iran and the United States have been locked in a cold confrontation since the Iranian Revolution of 1979, when American diplomats were taken hostage and relations collapsed entirely. For over 40 years, the two countries traded threats, sanctions, and proxy conflicts, never quite crossing into direct open war. Until now. At the heart of the tension was always one question: Iran's nuclear program. The United States and Israel both believed Iran was moving toward building a nuclear weapon. Iran insisted its program was peaceful. The international community was caught somewhere in the middle, trying to negotiate, verify, and prevent an outcome that nobody, at least publicly, claimed to want. In 2015, a landmark nuclear deal was reached. Iran agreed to limit its uranium enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief. But in 2018, the United States under President Trump withdrew from the deal unilaterally. Iran responded by gradually walking back its commitments, stockpiling enriched uranium, and limiting international inspections. The clock began ticking again. By early 2026, diplomacy was making a surprising return. In February, Iran and the US held indirect nuclear negotiations in Oman's capital, Muscat. Progress was reportedly being made. The mediating Omani foreign minister had stated significant progress, with Iran willing to make concessions. A second round of talks was being scheduled in Geneva. Peace for a brief moment seemed genuinely possible. Then everything changed. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a war with surprise airstrikes on sites and cities across Iran, killing Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and several other Iranian officials, as well as inflicting dozens of civilian casualties. The strikes came while nuclear negotiations were still ongoing, a timing that stunned diplomats around the world. The Omani foreign minister, who just days earlier had said peace was within reach, expressed dismay at what had just happened. The official explanations shifted almost daily. Trump administration officials offered diverse and changing explanations for starting the war, to preempt Iranian retaliation, to destroy Iran's missile capabilities, to prevent Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon, to secure Iran's natural resources, and to achieve regime change. The nuclear justification was complicated from the start. The International Atomic Energy Agency said that while Iran has an ambitious nuclear program, there was no evidence of a structured nuclear weapons program when the 2026 war began. Iran and several US officials disputed claims that Iran had been preparing an imminent attack. Israel, for its part, had its own strategic logic. Iran's support for Hezbollah, Hamas, and other regional armed groups had made it Israel's most significant long-term threat. The 2025 12-day war had already weakened Iran's air defenses and missile stockpiles significantly. Many of Iran's regional allies had been significantly weakened, primarily by Israeli military action from 2023 onwards. From Israel's perspective, this may have been the best and last strategic window. Iran did not absorb the blow quietly. Iran responded with missile and drone strikes on targets in Israel and at US military bases in Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The strikes were wide, reaching far beyond the borders of Iran and Israel, and pulling the entire region into the conflict. Preliminary figures put the death toll at roughly 1,937 dead in Iran. at least 20 in Israel, 13 US soldiers killed, and 26 killed across Gulf states. Oil prices surged, stock markets dropped. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which roughly 20% of the world's oil passes, was threatened with closure. The World Trade Organization warned that sustained high energy prices could reduce global GDP growth by 0.3%, with Europe potentially seeing growth fall at least 1% below forecasts. The conflict also reignited fighting in Lebanon, where Hezbollah launched attacks against Israel in solidarity with Iran. Since March 1st, fighting between the Israeli military and Iranian-backed Hezbollah has sharply escalated in southern Lebanon, amid an expanded Israeli ground operation and worsening humanitarian conditions. As of late March 2026, the war is still ongoing. By the 10th day of the conflict, Iranian missile and drone attacks had dropped by more than 90%, credited to effective suppression efforts by US and Israeli forces targeting Iranian launch infrastructure. But the fighting has not stopped. Diplomatic efforts are quietly underway. Pakistan has offered to host talks between Iran and the United States. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said US troops are being sent to the Middle East to give President Trump maximum optionality in the war, though officials are still pursuing a diplomatic solution. Trump himself has swung between threatening to obliterate Iran's energy infrastructure and saying he is open to a deal. Inside Iran, the political situation is chaotic. Khamenei is dead. His son has been selected as his successor, though the war has left the Iranian regime arguably at its weakest point in years. Whether that leads to negotiations, internal collapse, or further escalation remains one of the most consequential open questions in global politics right now. This is a war that almost did not happen. Diplomacy was alive. Negotiations were progressing. And then, in a matter of hours, decades of tension exploded into open conflict, with consequences that are still unfolding and that no one can fully predict. What happens next in Iran will shape the Middle East for a generation. It will affect oil prices, regional alliances, nuclear proliferation, and the balance of global power. Millions of people in Iran, in Israel, in Lebanon, in the Gulf, are living with the consequences of decisions made in a few critical days at the end of February 2026. History is not something that happens in the past. Sometimes it happens right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. See you in the next one.